Welcome back. Starting a business as a teenager can be daunting, it can be incredibly exciting, it can also be very intimidating. It can put you on your path to making your first $100, and that can put you on your path to making your first $1 million. It can give you a head start in terms of learning so much about business and so much about entrepreneurship. It's not easy, it's incredibly challenging and difficult, but it can also be incredibly rewarding. I'm going to give you the steps for how to start a business, some of the pros and cons, and how to get started today. So there are two core types of businesses that you can start. The first is a service type business, and that's doing some kind of work manually. It could be babysitting, it could be cleaning, it could be lawn mowing. The second type of business is a product business. That's when you're selling a physical good. That could be selling a craft, something that you made, or reselling something that someone else has made. Now, how do you get started? Is there a ton of legal paperwork? Are there a ton of things you need to file? Well, the simplest way to get started is just with your own name, called a sole proprietor. A sole proprietor just means that you're starting your business under your own name. So if you have a name, you're already ahead of the pack. You can get started with your business as a sole proprietor. In most cases, you don't need to file any paperwork. You don't need to do anything from a legal perspective. You can simply start doing the business and selling those products. Now, starting sole proprietor is the simplest and easiest to get started. There's not a lot of complexity, and there's a lot of advantages in terms of being able to get started quickly. So you can start the business as your name, start it as a sole proprietor, but then at a certain point, you may want it to be something beyond your name. So if you want to call your business Sunshine Happy Twinkle Toes, you can do that. All you have to do is file a DBA. DBA stands for Doing Business As, and it just means that you're allowed to cash checks and open a bank account with that name. That name's still tied to you personally, but it makes it easy to sound like a bigger company. And that's your first step in growing beyond yourself. As you continue to grow your business, you may want to eventually open a business account for that business as well. But when you're early and starting off, you can really be that sole proprietor. And as you grow, you can get a DBA to give your business a name that's separate from your own. Again, all this is very straightforward, and even a DBA costs just $50 to $100. They're usually filed in your local town or county or city, and they're very simple. They don't involve a lot of complexity. There's no state filings, there's no complexity, and your taxes are really easy if you get to the size that you need to do taxes. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, having a DBA allows you to deposit checks for Happy Sunshine Twinkle Toes, but it doesn't give you any legal protection from your business. So as your business starts to grow and generate a little more money, you're going to want to make sure that your business finances are separate from your personal finances. The reason you want to do that is you don't want to be sued and have them take your personal money. You want to protect yourself personally from the things that the business does. And the easiest way to do that is to form a corporation. There are two different types of corporations you can form. The first is called an LLC, and LLC stands for Limited Liability Corporation. And the other type of corporation is called a corporation with an S election, also called an S corporation or a small corporation. There are other types of entities, but those are the two basics. Now, filing a corporation is a little more complex. It requires a little more legal paperwork. It's not necessarily something I would recommend for a teenager. For a teenager, it's best to start as a sole proprietor or get a DBA. But if your business is starting to take off and be successful, you're going to want to put in some of those protections in place to keep your personal finances and your personal legal stuff really separate from your business financing. Now, starting a business as a teenager is all about learning. And these steps of starting as a sole proprietor, becoming a DBA, and then becoming a corporation, each of those steps can take multiple years. Don't jump steps before you're ready. You can really start simply as a sole proprietor. And once you've made some traction, you've figured out some of the mechanics on the business, you may want to do the DBA. And once you've really figured out and hit the ground running, then maybe you want to consider incorporating. For me, it took a number of years to get through those steps. And once I'd gone through those steps, I was really well positioned to continue to grow the business. The reason I say it's great to start a business as a teenager is you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And starting a business is all about making mistakes, learning from those mistakes, and growing beyond them. And so the earlier you can start learning and making mistakes, the faster you'll be on your path to not making those mistakes and having more successes and more wins. Both product-based businesses and service-based businesses are great ways to start and learn. They'll teach you all the basics of mechanics of pricing, of marketing, of how to talk to customers, of how to figure these things out. You're going to feel underwater a lot of the time. You're not going to know what some of these terms are. You're going to hear acronyms. And when you look those up, when you learn about them, that's when you really start making progress on your business and learning and growing beyond that. Now, the last part I want to cover is probably the least fun part of running a business, and that's taxes. I said it. There it is. Taxes, the worst part. The government always wants their cut of your money. Now, I have some good news for teens starting a business. Now, disclaimer, I'm not a tax advisor. Get your own tax advice. This is just what I've learned, but there's some good news in terms of taxes for teens. Taxes break into two categories. The first is income tax, and the good news on income tax is the first $12,200 of your income isn't taxed. So good news there. You can really get started, make some money up to $12,000 without really thinking too much about income tax. Now, the second tax to worry about is sales tax. If you have a product-based business, you're selling a product, you may have to pay state sales tax. Now, the good news on sales tax, in most states, you don't have to pay sales tax until you get to over $100,000 in sales. So good news on the sales tax front too. Now, the last tax to be aware of is Social Security and Medicare. If you make more than $400, the government will want to take that for self-employment tax. It's about 15%. Now, if you are a teenager, the good news there is most of the time that will be filed under your parents' tax return, so you may not even have to file a tax return there either. Just be aware of these things. And again, as you're starting a business, it's very natural to learn more and more about the mechanics of the business. So don't be afraid about taxes. Just know that that's something to be aware of, to keep in mind as you're growing your business, to account for some percentage of your revenue and your income going to taxes, whether it's sales tax, income tax, or Social Security, Medicare tax. You'll learn more about that over time. If you're starting a business as a teenager, there's a lot of tools online that can help you with the mechanics, whether it's Shopify or Squarespace, Wix, or others. These tools can provide the tracking of sales. They can provide some of the mechanics for business fundamentals. They can collect some of that sales tax that I talked about to make your job easier and allow you to focus on the product or service that you're making and how to get it to the customers that want it. Now, lastly, the exciting thing about business is that most of the things that you learn as a teenager in school, you have to learn. The teachers tell you have to learn it. Parents tell you have to learn it. The amazing thing about business is you only do it if it's something that you're passionate about, you want to learn. So you can choose the topics, choose the business areas, choose the technologies, choose the things you want to learn about, and then dive in deep to learn those things. And you can make a lot of money, have a lot of financial freedom, and honestly have a ton of fun doing it as well. I'm Greg Raiz. Thanks for listening. I love talking about technology, entrepreneurship, and design, and I hope I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.